Welcome back to another informative video by Sasikant Sarang AI Review Realm. What if the food you eat every day could be silently altering your health and the environment without you even knowing? From hidden allergens to superbugs, genetically modified foods have sparked a global controversy that's far from settled. Recent incidents have rocked the world, raising questions. Are GM foods a marvel of modern science or a ticking time bomb? Stay with us as we uncover the truth behind genetically modified foods, their safety, risks, and what you need to know before your next meal. Genetically modified, GM, foods are created by altering the DNA of plants, animals, or microorganisms to achieve desired traits, such as resistance to pests, enhanced nutritional content, or increased shelf life. Think of virus-resistant sweet potatoes or fast-growing salmon. But beyond the scientific promise lies a tangled web of safety concerns, environmental risks, and ethical dilemmas. GM foods are not just a scientific marvel, they're on our plates, whether we know it or not. From the US to India, their impact has been both celebrated and fiercely contested. The most common GM foods on the market today include soybeans, corn, cotton, and canola. These crops are engineered for traits like herbicide resistance, making them easier and cheaper to grow. In Hawaii, GM papayas saved the industry from a virus that nearly wiped out the crop, while in the US, GM potatoes were developed to resist pests and reduce bruising. But not all GM foods have been welcomed with open arms. Take Monsanto's new leaf potato, which was pulled from the market due to consumer rejection and regulatory hurdles. The promise of GM foods is clear, but their path to acceptance is anything but smooth. Testing GM foods is crucial to ensure safety and traceability. Technologies like qPCR and DNA microarrays are used to detect specific genetic modifications in crops. For example, refined oils derived from GM soybeans can still be traced back to their genetic origins through these advanced tests. However, testing methods aren't foolproof. Variations in standards across countries can lead to discrepancies, leaving gaps in safety checks. Are these tests truly safeguarding our food, or are we still in the dark about what's on our plates? GM foods have undeniable benefits. They can be more nutritious, grow faster, and thrive in challenging climates. For instance, golden rice, enriched with vitamin A, could potentially reduce malnutrition in parts of Asia. These foods also tend to have a longer shelf life, which helps reduce food waste. But with great power comes great responsibility. Critics argue that GM foods could introduce new allergens, disrupt ecosystems, and even contribute to antibiotic resistance. The long-term health effects remain unknown, and many people feel uneasy about consuming something that has been genetically altered in ways we barely understand. Before hitting the market, GM crops undergo safety testing. Studies on GM tomatoes, corn, and soybeans often claim that these foods are substantially equivalent to their non-GM counterparts, meaning no major differences in nutritional content or safety. However, some studies have found subtle but significant changes, like altered nutrient levels and potential gut health impacts in animals. For example, GM soybeans have shown variations in key nutrients that could affect human health. While safety tests are meant to reassure, the mixed results leave plenty of room for doubt. One of the most concerning aspects of GM foods is allergenicity. Imagine eating a food you're allergic to without knowing it, simply because a gene from one allergenic plant was inserted into another. This is not science fiction, it's a documented risk. For instance, transferring a gene from Brazil nuts into soybeans triggered allergic reactions in people allergic to nuts. Testing for allergens is part of the regulatory process, but predicting real-world reactions is still challenging. The question is, how safe are these foods really, and are current tests enough to protect us? The risks of GM foods extend beyond the plate. Environmental concerns include the rise of superbugs and superweeds, pests and weeds that have evolved to withstand the very modifications meant to control them. This has led to increased pesticide use, which contradicts the initial promise of GM crops reducing chemical applications. There's also the issue of cross-contamination, where GM crops mix with non-GM varieties, potentially threatening biodiversity. The controversies surrounding GM foods aren't just scientific, they're social, ethical, and deeply personal. Globally, public sentiment on GM foods is divided. In Europe, strict regulations reflect widespread public skepticism, with many consumers demanding transparent labeling of GM products. In the US, GM foods are more widely accepted but still face criticism for the lack of mandatory labeling. India's experience is mixed. After a controversial start with BT cotton, India has been cautious with GM foods, suspending approvals like BT brinjal due to public outcry. The Indian government's stance reflects a cautious approach, balancing scientific innovation with public safety concerns. Consumers worldwide remain wary of GM foods. Many fear the unknown long-term effects on health and the environment. Studies show that consumers are more likely to reject GM foods if they perceive a lack of transparency from companies and governments. Clear labeling, rigorous testing, and honest communication are key to addressing these concerns. In India, GM foods face a complex regulatory landscape. Although BT cotton is widely cultivated, food crops like BT brinjal remain in limbo due to safety and ethical concerns. India's stringent regulations reflect public apprehension, and any future approvals will likely face intense scrutiny. Traceability is critical to managing GM foods in the supply chain. Systems like segregation and labeling allow consumers to make informed choices, while traceability technologies ensure that GM foods can be tracked from farm to table. However, maintaining these systems is costly and complex, often posing challenges for countries with less developed regulatory frameworks. Concerns about gene transfer from GM foods to humans have also been explored. A study found that genes from GM soy transferred to the gut bacteria of some human volunteers, raising questions about potential long-term health effects. While the study showed no immediate harm, the implications are still not fully understood, highlighting the need for more research. The future of GM foods promises even more innovation, from crops that can withstand climate change to plants that produce life-saving vaccines. However, the path forward must be paved with rigorous safety checks, transparent labeling, and open public dialogue. Are GM foods the next big thing or a risky experiment with our food supply? The debate continues, and your opinion matters. Share your thoughts in the comments below, like this video, subscribe for more deep dives into food science, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on the latest in food safety.